have Valarie here today, and our first recording cut off. So we had some technical stuff we had to work through, and now we're gonna finish up the interviews. But anyway, so where are we at? I think we were talking about when you had gone to the hospital and your heart rate was over 200 beats per minute.
Yeah. So yeah, quickly just said that I was having an episode of SVT. I'd never had anything like that before. And this was within minutes of getting to the hospital. They're like, okay, we know how to fix it. We just have to stop your heart real quick and then it will reset. And I'm like, wait, what? And they're like, oh, we're just gonna they're like, it's fine, it's fine. I'm like, well, I have questions. Yeah. I, I need to know things. And they're like, there's not time for questions, lady. We have to stop your heart. And I'm like, holy shit, okay. My poor husband's like, there's no cell reception back here. What is happening? And they said they gave me adenosine and it didn't work. And my heart rate kept getting higher.
Mhm.
Um, and so they gave it to me a second time and it did not work. And so like that was a very clammy time for everyone in the room was very clammy and shaky. And then all at once my heart stopped and I toppled over for a second and came back. And then my heart rate had reset.
Great.
They were like, "Well, you seem fine now. You can go home." I was like, I don't feel like I should. Okay. And my husband was like, what do we do if it happens again? They said, bring her back. We'll stop her heart again. I'm like, well, I'm not trying to make this like I don't need a social life this bad. So then I got referred. That was when I had to start seeing a cardiologist. And now they know that I have like SVT and POTS. Like I'm being treated for POTS,
Mhm.
like dysautonomia type of thing. Because I just keep having episodes of tachycardia while like sleeping or like holding still. And then in so at that time, so that was November of 2023. And then about a week after that happened, my hair started falling out. And at the time I had like long dreadlocks. And so like which were fabulous because my natural hair is super, super thick and curly. And so like dreads were great for me. You don't have to do shit with them. You don't have to brush them. They were great. And like literally from my head, dreadlocks, like I would shake my head and dreadlock would fall out. Like I had holes, bald patches. So back to the doctor. So, okay, like I've been, like I've had all of the colonoscopies, all of the EGDs. We still don't know what's making me vomit every day and lose weight. Like now my heart's not working right. And now my hair is falling out. I don't know if that's like more of the malnutrition because I had so much trouble holding down food. So that was, I just like, that was like the culmination, I think, of when everybody started to be like, this is not a thing that she's getting like over. Like, this is a thing that's just getting progressively worse. And we need to like just start looking at accommodations. And like that has been hard over the last year. But I did go back to work after that and I was working and
Can I just say I'm blown away by how many times you went back to work after all these?
like, I'm like,
Yeah,
I feel like shit, and I'm going back to my heart stopped, and
I'm
I'm like,
very impressed.
hard because for 6 years I worked for a workers' comp attorney, and last year in February and March, um, like my hands were just getting because I typed for 8 hours a day, and my hands were just getting to be trash, and I was typing one day, and my right hand just stopped working. Like my brain was telling it to type, and it just was floppy and useless. So I ended up going off work for 2 weeks in March of 2024 until I could get in for an EMG to confirm the nerve problems. And then that turned into like 2 months. And then they put me off until surgery. And then when I had recovered as much as they expected, of course, you can continue healing, but after like so many weeks, they lift the restrictions to send you back to work, right? So it was like in October last year, my hand surgeon released me to try going back to work. And when I informed my boss, he fired me. for having a work comp injury as a work comp attorney. And this is someone that I like literally was family, like has set up my table for holidays, has held my newly born grandchildren, and like I felt was one of my close friends. And we ran that office together for 6 years, like the two of us, spotting each other and backing each other up. And I was just so blown away by that. It was just so shitty. And then he sent me the rest of my stuff, and it got destroyed somehow in transit. And so my stuff I didn't even get was messed up. It got wet or something. UPS said there had been an accident. So like I was like, now what do I do? So then I'm like, now my comp payment stopped. Then I had to apply for unemployment. So I had some kind of paycheck coming in, right? Because all that time I thought like once my hands are better enough, I'm going back to work. So that stress was phenomenal on me, and it screwed up my heart again, the stress of losing my job. And so then I was having to lay down, like be horizontal all day long. If I stood up, my heart rate was, skyrocketing and getting stuck.
Mhm.
Then the cardiologist wanted to insert a loop recorder, like a heart all the time heart monitor placed beneath the skin, so that they get alerts when my heart starts going nuts. I had that done like while I was still in the boot cast, the air cast boot, having my heart broken. I'm like, what is my life right now? I lost my job the week I was moving my mom into assisted living. I was just like everything is just disassembling around me. Anyway, there just like came to a point where it's just like this is not none of this is going to be fixable enough to get me back into shape to return to a full-time workforce. Like it's just not feasible. So, we kind of started to think about like maybe applying for Social Security disability. And because I had done that type of work at the law firm for 6 years, like we did mostly like work comp and Social Security disability. I know how to do it, but I also know from experience at work that you're much more likely to be approved the first time if you've already turned 50 or about to turn. So, and I'll be 50 in May. So then we were kind of like, should I wait? Then in the interim, I'm like bandaging up my wounded heart, carving my boss out as a former family member. Okay, now we're not doing that anymore. I no longer have a profession. I've been unemployed for a year. This is shit. Uh, and it's not just shit, it's also illegal. And he knows that it's illegal. He cannot fire me for going off work for surgery for a comp injury. Like that's not legal. And he knows it. So after I started picking myself back up, like I gave myself a minute because I didn't want to come off as like vindictive bitch, like literally this is something you're doing wrong and you know it, and you just think I won't do anything about it. So I waited a while and then I started calling attorneys, and I started getting like the weirdest responses. Like, I you do have a case, but I know your former boss and I will need to talk to him first. And I'm like, talk to him. Well, to make sure he doesn't hold it against me. And I'm like, if you feel like that, then I probably don't want to hire you as an attorney. But then this happened like 3 times. And I'm
Oh
like,
my
what the, like, then finally I got a call back from one attorney who was like, actually, I hate the guy. I don't care. I'll sue him for anything. I have got vengeance. And I'm like, all right.
You and me both, right?
Yeah, right? And he made, like, a comment about being a magistrate, and I was like I repeated my boss's name. He goes, "Did you not hear? He has just been appointed magistrate over, the next county up from us, workers' compensation courts." So that's why nobody will go against him because he has now been appointed judge, and nobody will challenge him. But this other guy is like, "Listen, I'm gonna retire not too long from now, I think, and whatever." So I'm like, "Okay." So waiting on that, but it's just like, well, of course he's a judge now. Why wouldn't he be a judge now? Wouldn't the universe reward him in that when my life is destroyed, like not just from that, but just like, am I in a sitcom? Like, it's just start to feel
What else
right.
could Go
Like,
wrong.
feel like these things should all be happening. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And now, um, we're realizing that there is more like nerve damage. Like it wasn't just so like now I'm seeing a neurosurgeon and I'm waiting on some testing and imaging has shown up some other issues with like nerve damage. So I don't know if that's like we don't know if that's like related to long COVID, but I feel like even the things that aren't related to the long COVID because they're in my body, if one thing flares, then the rest of them tend to follow, you know? So the first rheumatologist I saw after developing this was like, yeah, I think you have fibromyalgia, which is like, whatever. But he's like, but there's no way to treat it. So you don't need to come back. And I'm like, well, that was unhelpful. And then I started having, after the intussusception happened, like I started having like these weird physical things happen that were just bizarre. And doctors, urgent care providers, or what have you, whatever medical professional I was in front of at the time in the ER that started bringing up, have you ever heard of like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome? And I'm like, no, but I like to read. My eldest daughter's a librarian. So she started like looking up and sending me over books. And I'm like reading. I'm like, this is uncomfortably familiar. Setting.
Okay.
So, and like I felt like all of the things that were like chronic, but not stopping my life, but like weird before all of this happened. Like, and I literally didn't know other people couldn't move their joints this way. Like, I did not know other people's thumbs couldn't reach their forearm or,
Mhm.
be their skin be stretched. Like, I never have paid attention to those things. And so I ended up being tested for that. That took a while. They did measurements of, joints and damage and my range of motion and like my right hip hurts all the time because it's dislocating. That's why I can't, like I can't push through that. My left collarbone dislocates if I raise my left arm above my shoulder. So these are things that I have just been living with and thinking it was pain and just trying to put it in the back of my head. But these were signals that things are wrong. So like I have to learn to pay better attention and not push through pain because that is a bad idea. Hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And they thought for a minute, they were like, they did all the measurements, and even inside my mouth, the measurement of my palate mattered.
Wow.
And they were like, "Well, it's probably either EDS or you also seem very Marfanoid." I'm like, "Well, that it's a funny thing to say to someone, like very Marf.
Never heard the term marfanoid before. That's
Like,
interesting.
what do we do about that? Well, now you got to go back to the heart doctor and get that
Mhm.
ruled out." So then I had to do genetic testing. Don't have Marfan, so hypermobile EDS is like a diagnosis of exclusion because it doesn't have a genetic marker that they found yet. Other types of EDS, I guess, do have genetic markers. But once again, it's like, well, you just dislocate a lot and, are in constant pain. So there's really nothing we can do with that. I felt like I kept getting like, I'm collecting more diagnoses that nobody can do anything about. Like, there's no treatment for that. Anyway, so I know that I've heard you in the podcast kind of talk about LDN, and I only know what that is. I haven't had a doctor prescribe that for me. I would like to bring it up, but I have read that. I started reading over the last year when I'm able to read, which is not always, but when I'm able to read, I've been reading a lot of like chronic illness memoirs, just ways that people have, learned to accommodate their new abilities or disabilities. And one of those books I would really recommend when we get to the pearls of wisdom part, whatever. But the author of that brought up LDN. I'd never heard of it before. And so I started researching and like reading up and listening to more podcasts. And it does seem like something that helps a lot with like chronic inflammation pain. And that affects so much. Doctors are constantly trying to give me like corticosteroid shots and or I'm back on oral steroids now. There's just like constant inflammation in my body. And I get mouth sores. I don't know if you've experienced that, but I get like sores on my tongue and my cheeks. I feel like a completely alien body. My hair is starting to grow again. It was really short last year. It's like relearning how to pilot this body and work it. I think a lot of it is I have to think so slowly and specifically about involved topics. I can't just catch on anymore. I have to really be like squinting, focusing all of my energy. And that adds to that fatigue. Like I've heard myself say it, like, how am I getting winded from putting stickers on a paper? I never thought I'd see the day that like putting my hair in a ponytail would lead me to needing a nap and a tachycardia episode. Like it's just like this is nuts. It's nuts. And it keeps getting nuttier. And then I had another ambulance ride last year in October. I'm sure that they were getting tired of seeing me there. But I did like online therapy. I've had my insurance recently changed. And so I'm starting with a new therapist. But the therapist I had over the last 4 years previously was telehealth. And so like I was home alone and I like did a normal hour-long appointment and it finished up and I stood up and took a couple steps and experienced a complete rectal prolapse. Had never heard of that before. Did not know bodies could do that. Absolutely blown away and home alone and not having any fucking idea what was happening. I was just like, what is happening to my body? And then, like, once again, my husband had to leave work. He called an ambulance. Talk about an inglorious stretcher ride. I was wearing an old concert t-shirt because I just live in pajamas now. I don't leave home hardly. And so like I'm wearing like, an old Green Day shirt and I'm like on my face in the stretcher going over railroads and they're like trying to stick IVs in me and they're asking me to rate the pain. And then the EMT behind me was like, so you like Green Day? I don't think I can have this conversation right now. I mean, yes, but also my body is coming out of my body. I don't know how to process what's happening to me right now. And then that ER doctor was like, this is really weird. And I see in your chart you had intussusception last year. And I'm like, yes. And he's like, tested for I'm like, dude, it keeps coming up. And nobody at that time locally could figure out how to run the tests. But he was like, you really, because these things are not normal for your age and your lifestyle. Like you're stretching apart. Once I started seeing the cardiologist, we found that I have also developed an aortic dilatation that is increasing in size about every time that it's checked every 6 months. And so, that's more of that stretchiness from the Ehlers-Danlos. It's just like I'm like my collagen overstretches and cannot snap back. And that, again, like it's not the whole problem, but definitely has been like obviously a thing I've had my whole life, but now is so amplified that like one wrong move is I just have to be so cautious. Like I have like an SI joint wrap on because I had to do PT yesterday. And EPT, they're like, we want you in the water. We don't want you to move on ground. You're like dislocating. And then that's exhausting trying to heal over and over again. It's just been so bizarre.
Nobody has exactly the same story. So, like some things that you had, probably someone's listening and they've had that, and
Yeah.
maybe it'll help them get a diagnosis of something because they heard this.
I do.
It's
I
just
listen
a lot
to
of
a lot of podcasts.
information.
I can't read because I like information. Even before this, just like I like to learn about topics. I like get interested in a random thing and then hyperfixate on it for a while. You know what I mean? Like, I love information and learning, and so I sometimes I have a hard time reading with the brain fog or processing what I'm reading. So if I'm like in that mode and I'm trying to like find out about more stuff or trying to get more information, but I'm not in a headspace where I can read with my eyeballs, then I've started using audiobooks or podcasts because then I'm still able to absorb information about things I'm interested in. It's just like kind of a different medium. So it's kind of been an adjustment, but I have learned so much on different podcasts. Like the first health podcast I stumbled on like Spotify last year. And I don't even remember what I searched to find it, but it was called Invisible Not Broken. I binged the whole thing. And because that's exactly it. Like it's not specific to long COVID, it's specific to like chronic, invisible, debilitating illness like Ehlers-Danlos or, narcolepsy. That you hear things just like that thing with the sensory overstimulation with the ears, just hearing a fragment, reading a fragment off an Instagram post resonated so deeply. And so, like, it is kind of like a buffet, but you can just listening to podcasts and listening to audiobooks about these topics. Then I have more information to take back to your doctor that, like, you maybe didn't realize part of the problem before. There may be language to describe it, but we may not be privy yet to that language. And so it's hard to express sometimes in front of a medical professional, like succinctly express the root of the problem because, like, I know that I hurt my joints easily. I know my skin heals very slowly, those sorts of things. I know that I dislocate too easily. And nobody had ever brought up Ehlers-Danlos to me before the last year. So, like, I would never have thought to go in and ask about being tested for this, you know? So, like, you mean everybody doesn't routinely roll their ankles? They don't routinely do that with their hands, like, have to pop their thumbs back in? Like, I don't know, it just seems so normal. I didn't process it as a health concern until all of a sudden my parts started coming out of me. Wait a minute, that stretchy thing makes sense now. Now I'm in the midst of doing some autoimmune type of testing and scans. It's hard. I know. I understand, like, medical providers, their hands are tied in a lot of ways because of opioid and fentanyl rules and whatnot, but also you can't just leave people in chronic pain all the time. And I do not believe that staggering Motrin and Tylenol, like they tell me in the emergency room, is as good as an actual pain specific medication, like it's hard. And those of us with not well known chronic symptoms like long COVID, because still some medical professionals just don't think it's real. So I don't know how at this point anyone could not have known someone stricken by COVID. Just I don't understand it, but it's a losing battle. If they don't believe it, they just don't believe it. It's just a waste of time.
Unless they get it.
Yeah, yeah. But it is hard. It's like your whole life is just upside down.
Any tips and tricks that you've learned or take home pearls to help you cope and survive all of these things that have happened?
I would say, like, I have to think at this point, I cannot be the only person that wasn't registering the exhaustion thing as complete exhaustion. I just kept thinking if things would just slow down for a minute, or if I could just get a little extra sleep this weekend, or, like, if I can just land on the right brace or vitamin or whatever, like, it would get better. And not really grasping that needing to sleep, like giving up things like brushing my hair before I went to work, giving up on things like brushing my teeth or putting on any semblance of makeup, or, it just did not register to me that those were signs of such deep exhaustion. And you hear a lot about, like, spoon theory and spoonies and that sort of thing, right? And I get it. And that does resonate in ways. But my little peeve with that is just that, like, you can always buy more spoons, right? If you really, really had to, there's some place you could go to get more, but I can't. Like, I can't buy more energy stores, or, like, I can't get more. It doesn't resonate, I think, as well as me. But if it does with other people, that's great. I heard a different take on that, and I will probably butcher it, but rather than or in addition to spoon theory, is the idea of the three batteries, right? So, like, that we don't always realize we're draining battery A, and then we're running on, which is normal, but then, like, you're running on your backup battery for a long time. And I think I just didn't recognize physically that I was running on my backup battery for so long, because then when that one gave out and I was down to my battery C, the last one, like, there was just nothing. There was nothing left of me. Like, I literally would sleep until I went to work, sleep on my lunch break. And there were times I had to stop on the way home because I was not awake enough to be driving. And then I would get home and just, like, my husband would have to untie my shoes because my hands by that time could not work. set me on the couch and I would crash until he woke me up with a plate of food and then crash again. And still thinking I was just going to just had to get over this hump, this something, this anemia. I just need to get over this hospital stay. I just need to get over this surgery and I'm going to feel better. And in that kind of magical thinking, I've worn myself out to where there's just, like I've used up my backup batteries, recognizing that's what I was doing. And now I'm like very low on my very last backup battery. And that is where I have been for 2, 3 years, just it doesn't matter how much I sleep, I never get past that baseline. That's like always my baseline now. And so like I feel like to me visually the image of like the three batteries and like being aware that you may feel okay, but you may also be at that time running through your backup batteries and not realizing that there will not be any more energy stores for you probably in this lifetime. Just don't know why it wasn't processing at that time when I was still working. Like, I'm so tired. And I kept going to the doctor and I was like, I'm so tired. Like, I'm sleeping in my car when it's snowing, rather than eat. Like, I am so tired. It's not right. And then they were like, it's the anemia, it's the vitamin B deficiency. We just got to fix this. And it just, I wish anybody had maybe explained the way draining those battery stores can have a permanent effect. Right. So don't know if I'll ever restore any, get back. I may be just running on that little bit of my last backup battery forever, and I have to take care of it. I can't run it out. I wish somebody, even though, like I was saying, like, I'm so tired, and putting myself in front of medical professionals would help me. I just feel like it wasn't hitting me that I didn't have to be that exhausted all the time if I stopped working.
Mhm.
That was the thing that was, like, killing me, like, sucking every ounce of energy out of me, like, it just wasn't clicking. And then when I went off work for surgery for my hands, I was in constant pain and not sleeping well because of the carpal tunnel, and then that was 2 separate surgeries, so that was last summer, was just having and recovering from arm and hand surgeries, and I just have never still gotten back to that baseline. I wish that I had stopped and recognized my body signals before I just depleted my batteries. It didn't occur to me that I may be this fatigued forever now, and I have to figure out a way to build a life around that rather than trying to blast full steam ahead through the life I used to have, because I'm not going to get better. Realistically, I'm not going to get better. But if I can like stop the decline where I'm at and maybe rebuild a little something here, at this stage, and not always thinking I'm going to get better. um, Being home has shown me how little just being at home, existing, like remembering to feed myself lunch and drink water is so exhausting. I have no idea. Like, now I could not, a normal day for me now, like if I wanted to shower and make a grilled cheese sandwich on the same day, man, I would need to plan. I would need to have naps. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just, I would have to plan for those energy stores and probably be zonked the next day. It's ridiculous to say that, but like, if I can't stand up long enough to like friggin' put on makeup, how was I working full time? I don't know, just pure force. And that's not a good flex. I wish that I had understood what I was doing to my body when I just kept forcing it through that level of exhaustion. Like, if somebody feels that way and it's like constant, it's constant. And maybe because I do have issues with anxiety and sometimes depression. And at first, when I stopped, even just like the showers, like when I stopped being able to talk myself into a shower for the last year, and I kept thinking, like, it's depression. Like, maybe my meds need to be tweaked because my weight changed again. And it took me a long time to be like, that this is not depression. This is just that I can't stand up that long. I
Mhm.
cannot stand up in the shower. That's why I can't force myself to do it anymore. Like, I would just like think of all the steps involved in washing my hair and taking a shower on the same day and just be like so depleted I couldn't talk myself into it. That is exhaustion. That's something wrong. Don't just keep pushing through that. feel like I was irresponsible with my energy store there last year or so that I was working, like, because I just kept thinking it would get better if I held on and pushed through. And then it just became that my entire life was just working 40 hours a week, driving 30 minutes back and forth, and then crashing on the couch and drooling, like, until somebody woke me up to go to bed, like,
Yeah.
this is not a life, but, like,
Mm,
you sink into it. It's like the frog in the boiling water. You kind of sink into it a little at a time. It doesn't seem that bad to let go of this, let go of that. Maybe it's just not the season in my life for this thing right now. And
mm,
then all of a sudden, you're like, I've given up all of my social interactions and I still can't stand up long enough to brush my teeth. Like, this is different. This is not tired. Like, this is just my body cannot process and use energy the way it ought to. It just doesn't. So, like, if you are in that situation and you feel that way and you are realizing that you're, like, giving up hobbies and friendships and church or, important things to you in favor of getting 10 more minutes of sleep, that is not going to get better without, like, there's a reason that you are that exhausted. You need to accommodate or modify or go back to the doctor. It's not normal to be so debilitated by fatigue that you can't make it through a normal day sitting at a desk job. That's as a big deal. Don't just be like, I'm tired. I'll stop and get a coffee. Like, that's not tired. That's like your body is fighting, and it's just, like, not good. I realize now that, like, I just kept pushing myself because I had, until I was so completely depleted, there was just nothing left, and I don't know if that can be fixed. I'm trying really hard to learn things, like, I need more salt in my diet than I used to have because of the pot stuff. I used to drink lots of water, and now I need to drink more electrolyte drinks, little things like that. But there's book I read, I know I mentioned this, I heard about it on the first chronic illness podcast I stumbled on, and the book is called The Lady's Handbook for Her Mysterious Illness. Very dainty title, by
great.
Sarah Rainey. What she has is, like, CFS, so the post exertional malaise experiences and the all over inflammation and pain. She got sick not with COVID, but with something else, and it triggered that in her as a young woman. And just looking at how she had to go about her diet, the feelings were so real and raw, and I really resonated with it. And I think a lot of people who have read it do, because it's very honest, and she was raised by physician parents. So, a lot of that played into it. And I would recommend that for any person who is chronically ill, even if you don't identify as female. It's kind of the book is not just feminine people. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, it's like a kind of a humor stab, the name of the book. Like, it's not just for chicks, but, like, it's like a lady's handbook for her mysterious illness, as if there could be such a thing, with your little white gloves on and your
Right.
Emily Post and whatnot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but it is a very well written book, and I feel like had a lot of, like, things like LDN. I had never heard of that before. And then I started hearing that on your podcast, and I'm like, well, what is this thing? So then I can look it up. Now I have information to take back to my provider. That's super helpful. But I would definitely, I mean, not even specific to long COVID, but just like chronic illness and that kind of fatigue and post exertional malaise is so identifiable. One thing in the book that, like, made me want to scream was, she's like, I kept telling the doctors that, like, I just feel like I have the flu all the time. And I know that feeling, and that is so, I think, strengthening to get that feeling of, like, no, this is not just me. It helps me understand what happened to my body and how to not make it worse. Like, you will just keep doing it until you deplete your energy stores, and you may not get them back. And so learning to pacing was not a notion I had brought up to me, and stuff like that was really, like you said, pearls, like, just little things I've taken away. Not the least of those things was just like a resonation of, like, symptoms and validation from somebody I do not know, and not be making up, what I'm
Right.
experiencing. The first part of the book is her illness, and the second part of the book is looking at root causes and potential root causes. Learning to pace has been really hard for me. So I don't know If that's really hard for other people, it's been really hard for me. Like, I feel like I need remedial pacing school. Very slow from learning, but like, if you're experiencing something in your body and you know that you keep experiencing it, like, trust your own self, trust what you're feeling. You have value just because you exist. You do not need to produce something in order to have, enough worth to take yourself to the doctor. We are valuable just because we exist. And if you can't work anymore, you are still exactly as valuable as you. And even if you can't work anymore, if you have the means, don't just keep pushing yourself. Take yourself in front of a trusted medical provider, and you may be dismissed, and that sucks, but you just have to keep going back because you are valuable enough. Like, burnout is real. Medical burnout, medical illness burnout is real, and I've been to that place where, like, I just can't stand to make one more doctor appointment. I can tolerate telling this story one more time to another dismissive provider that thinks I'm hysterical. I am worth that. I am worth taking to the doctor. I am worth figuring my health out and putting forth the effort and funds and whatnot that I have available to me. And so is everybody else listening to this podcast. Like, to me, it's easy for me to say, I will wait on a health thing because I'm not bringing in a paycheck right now. I feel guilty to spend money on myself, but I am a human being that deserves to go to the doctor whether I'm working or not. You know what I'm saying? I may not be clear because I have a hard time with that sometimes now, but that's another thing that's just like a remedial thing that I think not enough of us think about, because it's just learned behavior, that you just keep putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. Don't. Long COVID is a thing you should not put off the symptoms for. You may be able to get some kind of treatment or help before it gets to the point where you just sleep 20 hours a day. You know, I wish anybody had told me that was okay. I should have known that, but it just wasn't a thing that I logically through, you know, to like stop. I just never entered my mind to just completely stop working until my body just stopped it for me. And I may not be in my current health predicament if I had listened to my body sooner. So that's it. That's my pros, the book and the battery story.
Thank you. Thank you for spending so much time telling us your story and just all the things you have to do mentally to log into the recording studio and
I'm
just
glad you're able to get it. Yeah.
just yeah, thank you for your time and all of your brain power. I only plan one of these a week because I can only do one because we just sleep.
My body's limit. I have got to respect that. My body is making this boundary for a reason. So that's good on you that you are able to set boundaries with yourself, to say like I can't do more than what I'm doing now, and that is fine. But what you're doing now does, like you say, like only once a week or whatever. But like only once a week was, it's just like how I stumbled upon your podcast on Spotify, and I was like, just started hearing more stories that were, because I had binged the whole of the other chronic illness podcasts that I know I had finished them, so I was looking for more information, more people like myself, and that it makes a difference in the hardest, darkest moments with this illness, just like knowing other people can resonate with what you're experiencing. It's not just you. Maybe, I mean, there's not a fix, but I think just emotionally and mentally, it means so much to like be validated and not dismissed, and be told like, yes, you are feeling that symptom because you do. I will gaslight myself less when I know that there are other people experiencing the same thing.
Yes.
And
It's not
that matters.
right.
It matters so much. Like, and if you already have like mental health things or trauma, dumping a chronic illness or multiple chronic illnesses on top of that is just so isolating and hard. And it takes so much effort and work just to exist and keep taking my 18 medications that I take daily to keep myself upright, and like remembering to feed myself, like give myself protein, like those things are exhausting to me, and I have to respect those limits. And I know that I have to because the people that I hear on podcasts have the same types of limits. And then they realize I don't have to keep doing all of these things. I am destroying myself. That's what's happening, like that is invaluable experience. I think podcasts are cool just because I like podcasts, but I also think they're cool because I think a lot of us with long COVID or MECFS with the PEM and brain fog can make it so hard to follow a plot or follow a lot of reading at a time. So, like, I think podcasts are really beneficial for those of us who have those issues as well. Like, I might not be able to read as voraciously as I used to, but I can still intake information on these things that interest me. And, you started this for your own self, and like I was like trying to learn more information for my own self and just stumbled upon it. I know these feelings, like, that matters so much. I just don't know how to, like, I know I'm overstating that, but I don't know if it can be overstated. Like, it feels so isolating when my whole life is just going to the doctor, recovering from that, taking a shower. Now I got to recover from the shower.
Mhm.
Like tomorrow I might make a sandwich. I don't know if that's going to do me in for the day. It's so isolating when your existence is just takes so much energy and thought and preparedness, and like giving up on things that you can let go of to preserve those energies is hard because a lot of times that those things are like your social circles and your community, and then suddenly you're isolated, and like there's no natural way to run into people
Mhm.
because you're not going to work, you know what I mean, like you're not
Grocery store.
like, where am I going to meet people? Yeah.
Right.
So like things like this matter. I just want you to understand how much that mattered and how much that matters to me at the time, the day that I first stumbled on it. Like it really, like, I know that I just shot you like a little email, but I'm not sure if I could have, expressed how valuable that was to me in that moment, that I was looking for some kind of support or community or somebody else that shares the experiences that I have every day, that I have nobody to talk to about them, because you can only talk about being sick so much to your abled peoples, like, I'm sorry that it's my whole life, but it's just so invaluable to feel not alone, even if there's a physical different distance. And that just matters so much. And so, like, just once again, thank you so much for what you're doing. Even like this, like today, I know that like the stress of losing our connection and then trying to, it is, it's like energy. It's like, it's insane how much energy we are drained from just common, simple things like that. But you keep doing it. And I appreciate your effort and that sacrifice because it makes a difference. Makes a big difference. And it made a big difference for me. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And anyone listening who wants to reach out to myself or Valarie, I will forward emails to her if you want to reach out. I love getting the emails. I don't know about you, but I loved getting your emails. And it definitely helps to not feel so alone.
It's weird and such a strange. There's just, I know everybody hates this word, but it's so unprecedented. And I know we heard that word in the news so much at the beginning, but like many of us don't know how to cope with this because this is the first time we've seen anything like this in our lifetimes, and we weren't prepared. We did not have the toolkits, but we're gaining tools so the people come after us may not have to suffer as much. And that makes an enormous difference. And that is hopeful. Even when most days feel hopeless, there is hope in things like that, and that matters.
That's awesome. I think that's the perfect
Ending note.
perfect sentence to end it. So thank you again for being here, and thank you everybody for listening, and we'll talk again real soon.
All right. Thanks so much.